I remember the exact moment the light went out, though I didn't know it then. It was a Tuesday, late morning, the sun already high over the flatirons, painting the kitchen with a deceptive warmth. Sarah was fussing over my breakfast, her movements precise, almost ritualistic, as she spooned oatmeal into a bowl, then meticulously sliced a banana over it. I was in my wheelchair, staring out the window at the vibrant green of our backyard, a world I could see but no longer truly inhabit. My body, once a source of pride and strength, now felt like a leaden weight, a useless appendage tethering me to this chair, this house, this life. My name is Marcus. I'm 52, a retired firefighter from Boulder, Colorado. Or at least I was. Now I'm just Marcus, the guy in the chair. The guy who survived a freak accident, but in truth, lost everything that mattered. Sarah called me her hero, her strong man, but her words felt like a soft blanket that smothered more than it comforted. I carried a crushing weight of guilt, a constant ache deeper than any nerve damage. Guilt for the accident, for my inability to protect myself, for being a burden to Sarah, for the life we'd lost. Sarah was my caretaker, my everything. My hands, my legs, my memory. Sometimes it felt like even my thoughts. She administered my medications, managed my appointments, cooked, cleaned, navigated the labyrinthine insurance paperwork. She did it all with a serene, unwavering devotion that strangers often remarked upon, calling her an angel. I saw it too for years. I saw the selflessness, the sacrifice. How could I not? I depended on her for every single thing. A sip of water, a shift in my position, a trip to the bathroom. Without Sarah, I was nothing. A hollowed-out shell, rusting away in a golden cage, the bars forged from my own weakness and her unyielding care. Our story, or what I thought was our story, began like many others. I met Sarah at a fundraiser for a local animal shelter. She was a volunteer, petite with kind eyes and a quiet smile that could disarm anyone. I was a big, boisterous firefighter, full of life and adrenaline, still in my prime. She brought a calming presence to my chaotic world. We married 2 years later, a small ceremony in our backyard, the same yard I now stared at, wishing I could walk across it. The accident came 5 years ago. A routine call, or so it seemed. A gas leak in a residential home. The details were always hazy, even before the meds clouded my mind. A sudden explosion, a collapse, and then darkness. When I woke up, it was to the stark white of a hospital room, Sarah's face swimming into view, her eyes red-rimmed, her voice a soft murmur of relief and grief. She was there, always there. Doctors spoke of spinal cord damage, a traumatic brain injury, a miracle I survived. They said my recovery would be long, arduous, and uncertain. From that moment, Sarah became my world, my sole connection to it. She transformed into the epitome of a devoted wife, navigating the intricate medical system, advocating for me, never leaving my side. She learned how to change catheters, prevent bed sores, operate the lift. Friends and family would visit, their faces etched with sympathy, but Sarah often gently steered them away after a short while, explaining I needed rest, that I tired easily. I didn't question it. I was tired constantly. My head felt heavy, my thoughts sluggish, like wading through thick mud. She often said, "You're still recovering, sweetheart. Your brain needs time." And I believed her. She was protecting me. The fog was always there, a dull ache behind my eyes, a constant cottony texture to my thoughts. My memory was shot. Sometimes, I'd forget what day it was, or even what I'd had for breakfast an hour earlier. Sarah would patiently remind me, her voice soothing, never judgmental. She'd explain it was the post-concussion syndrome, combined with the strong pain medications. "It's a lot, Marcus," she'd often say, stroking my forehead. "Your body is fighting so hard." I accepted it. What else could I do? I trusted her implicitly. She was my anchor in a sea of confusion. The first crack in my golden cage wasn't a dramatic explosion, but a whisper. It came on a rare outing, a trip to the local market for some fresh air, Sarah pushing my chair. We bumped into Frank, an old paramedic colleague, a gruff but kind man who'd been on scene that day. He bent down, his face full of concern, talking about how much he admired my resilience. As Sarah turned to grab some organic apples, Frank leaned in closer, his voice low. "Heard you were asking about the accident, Marcus," he said, and I furrowed my brow. confused. I hadn't asked anyone anything. Yeah, that was a hell of a thing. Strange, though. I remember a witness saying they saw someone running from the house just before it blew. Never made sense, considering it was a gas leak. Thought it was just shock, but always stuck with me. He straightened up then, catching Sarah's eye as she returned, a little too quickly, her smile fixed. Anyway, great to see you, buddy. You look well, Sarah, keeping him in top shape. He patted my shoulder and was gone, leaving a faint scent of antiseptic and a swirling question mark in my mind. Sarah dismissed it with a wave of her hand. Oh, Frank, always dramatizing. You know how those first responders can be, Marcus. Everything's a movie scene to them. She laughed, a light, tinkling sound that usually comforted me, but this time it felt brittle. But the seed was planted. Someone running from the house. It didn't fit with anything Sarah had told me. My version of events was a sudden, unforeseen explosion, not someone fleeing. I tried to push it away. It was Frank, confused, misremembering. My brain was the one that was damaged, not his. But the doubt gnawed. That night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, the usual medication haze felt thicker than usual. I struggled to recall details of the accident. It was like trying to grasp smoke. Sarah's voice, explaining it, was clearer than my own fragmented memories. You were checking the line, Marcus, it just went. A tragic accident, honey. She'd repeated it so often, it was gospel. The nagging feeling grew, subtle at first. I started paying closer attention. To Sarah, to the medications. Why did I always feel so utterly drained, so disconnected, especially after she gave me the evening dose? My physical therapist, a young woman named Chloe, had recently suggested I try some new exercises for my core strength. We can get you walking, Marcus, even if it's with a walker. You've got the spirit. I'd felt a flicker of hope, a rare warmth. But then Sarah would subtly discourage it. Chloe means well, dear, but let's not overdo it. You were so tired after that last session. We don't want to push too hard and risk a relapse. She'd always find an excuse, a reason why I couldn't do more, couldn't push harder. And I, in my foggy state, would acquiesce. She knew best. She always knew best. I started watching her during medication time. She'd bring the little plastic cup, a mix of pills, some large, some small. A glass of water. Her movements were always smooth, her expression loving. Time for your evening cocktail, my love, she'd say, and I'd swallow, trusting. But now, with Frank's words echoing, a question mark hung over every pill. I remembered one afternoon, about a year ago, when our nephew, Liam, had visited. He was studying pharmacology. He'd innocently glanced at my pill organizer on the bedside table. Whoa, Uncle Marcus, that's quite the cocktail. Is that Ativan in there? And baclofen? That's a pretty heavy combo, especially with the pain meds. Must make you pretty drowsy. Sarah had quickly interjected. Liam, honey, your uncle's doctors know what they're doing. He needs them for the spasticity and the anxiety. It's all carefully calibrated. Liam had shrugged, but his words, like Frank's, had burrowed into my subconscious. Ativan, baclofen. The names now carried a faint, unsettling echo. The idea of investigating felt almost treasonous. Sarah was my guardian angel, but the seeds of doubt, once planted, had taken root, slowly strangling the comfortable lie I'd lived. I found an old tablet, tucked away in a drawer I rarely used, forgotten since before the accident. Sarah probably thought it was broken, or simply hadn't bothered with it. It was slow, clunky, but it worked. I started to use it in secret, late at night, when Sarah was asleep in the adjacent room. The first few searches were tentative, fueled by a desperate, silent hope that I was wrong, that my mind was just playing tricks on me. I started with my medications. I typed in the names Sarah had mentioned, the ones Liam had questioned. Ativan, baclofen, hydrocodone, the painkiller. Individually, they made sense. Together, they formed a potent sedative cocktail. The side effects listed: dizziness, drowsiness, confusion, impaired memory, fatigue, depression. It was a perfect description of my daily existence. Was it truly just my condition, or was it the drugs keeping me in this perpetual state of foggy dependence? The next step was harder. I needed my medical records. Sarah kept them all, meticulously organized in a filing cabinet in her home office. I couldn't just walk in there. Even moving my wheelchair quietly was a challenge. One afternoon, When Sarah had gone to the grocery store, a rare 2-hour window of solitude, I made my move. It was agonizingly slow, maneuvering my chair, opening the filing cabinet with shaking hands, my breath catching in my throat, praying she wouldn't come back early. I found the discharge papers, the initial injury reports, the medication charts. Pages filled with medical jargon, dates, dosages. My eyes scanned for inconsistencies, for anything out of place. And there it was, hidden in plain sight. An early medication list, from the first few weeks after the accident, that include a drug I had no recollection of, a powerful tranquilizer usually given for acute psychiatric conditions, and only for short periods. Its duration of use, according to the chart, seemed to extend far beyond the recommended timeline. And another, a muscle relaxant, whose dosage appeared to fluctuate, sometimes higher than what seemed necessary, even for severe spasticity. The pieces, once scattered and seemingly unrelated, began to click into place, forming a horrific mosaic. Frank's comment. Liam's observation. The constant fog. Sarah's subtle discouragement of my physical therapy. Her insistence on administering every single pill herself. It wasn't just my injury. It was the constant, controlled drip of sedatives and muscle relaxants, keeping me docile, dependent, perpetually confused. My heart hammered against my ribs, a wild drumbeat of fear and burgeoning horror. I remembered a conversation with Sarah shortly after I came home from the hospital. I'd been confused, asking about the accident, trying to piece it together. She'd held my hand, her eyes filled with what I'd thought was compassion. Marcus, darling, you were in so much pain. They gave you very strong medication in the hospital to keep you comfortable. You barely remember anything. It's better that way. It was a nightmare. Let it go. And I had. For 5 years, I had let it go. I had trusted her. The gaslighting was a slow poison, just like the drugs. Every time I questioned my memory, she'd assure me it was the trauma, the medication. Every time I felt a flicker of clarity, she'd gently remind me of my limitations, my fragile state. My guilt had been her greatest weapon, turning me against myself. I was a victim, yes, but I was also complicit in my own imprisonment, blinded by love and dependence. I needed proof. Irrefutable, undeniable proof. The tablet was still my secret weapon. I found a small, almost invisible voice recorder app. I tested it, hiding the tablet under my blankets, recording a few minutes of ambient sound. It worked. The plan forming in my mind was terrifying, desperate, but necessary. The next evening, I feigned a particularly bad episode. I exaggerated my tremors, my pain, my confusion. I slurred my words, pretending to be more disoriented than usual. Sarah rushed to my side, her face creased with concern. "Oh, Marcus, my poor sweetheart. You're having a rough night, aren't you?" Her voice was laced with that familiar, cloying sweetness. Can't think. I mumbled, letting my head loll to the side. Head foggy. I know, darling. Don't worry. I'll get you settled. Just need your evening meds, and you'll sleep soundly. She moved to the bedside table, preparing the pills. I reached for her hand, weakly, drawing her a little closer. "You're so good to me, Sarah," I whispered, forcing tears into my eyes. "What would I do without you?" She smiled, a tender, possessive smile. "You'll never have to find out, my love." As she held the cup of pills and the glass of water to my lips, her hand steady, I pressed the record button on the tablet, hidden beneath the folds of my blanket. I swallowed the pills, each one a bitter promise of betrayal. That night, sleep was impossible. I lay there, mind racing, clearer than it had been in years, thanks to my careful rationing of doses over the past few days. I had to know the full extent. I used the tablet to search for public records. Our property deeds. Bank accounts. I found something about a will, one I didn't remember signing, that left everything to Sarah, bypassing my immediate family, my sister, my nephew. That wasn't right. My actual will, the one I drafted years ago, split my assets between Sarah and my family. This was different. A new will, signed after the accident. My signature looked off. Wobbly, almost childlike, fitting for a man recovering from a severe brain injury, but still not quite mine. Then came the financial transactions. It took hours of painstaking searching through online bank statements I managed to access using old forgotten passwords. Small, consistent transfers from our joint account to a separate, private account in Sarah's name. A significant withdrawal from my pension fund, listed as medical expenses, but no corresponding medical bill in her meticulously kept files. Investments in her name, large sums. It wasn't just a new will, it was a methodical siphoning, a long-term plan to gain complete financial control. I clicked on the recording from earlier. Sarah's voice was clear, crisp, listing the medications as she gave them to me. And the usual one for your spasticity, and your little sleepy pill, darling. The words, so innocent then, now sounded like a death knell. The puzzle was complete, and the picture it formed was monstrous. Sarah hadn't merely failed to help me heal. She had actively, deliberately, systematically worked to keep me sick, dependent, and isolated. My freak accident had been orchestrated, or at the very least, my recovery had been hijacked, twisted into a lifelong prison sentence. The guilt I had carried for so long evaporated, replaced by a searing, incandescent rage. I waited until morning. I couldn't face her in the dark. The sun was just beginning to climb over the mountains, painting the eastern sky in hues of orange and pink, as if nothing in the world had changed. Sarah came in, bright and cheerful, to help me with my morning routine. "Good morning, sleepyhead," she chirped, her voice light. "You slept well, didn't you?" I looked at her, truly looked at her for the first time in years. Her kind eyes, her gentle smile, the lines around her mouth that I'd once found endearing. They were all a mask. A perfect, terrifying mask. "Sarah," I said, my voice hoarse, steadying myself with an effort. "We need to talk." Her smile faltered slightly. "Of course, darling. What is it? Are you feeling worse?" She moved to feel my forehead, but I flinched away. "Don't touch me." The words were colder than I intended, but they came out. Her hand froze in midair. Her eyes widened, a flicker of something, alarm, perhaps, replacing the gentle concern. "Marcus? What's wrong?" I pushed the tablet towards her, the recording already playing. Her voice, from the night before, echoed in the silent room. "And your little sleepy pill, darling." I watched her face. The blood drained from it. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. "Frank told me about the witness." I began, my voice gaining strength, the years of suppressed rage and pain fueling it. "The one who saw someone running from the house. And Liam, my nephew, he mentioned the cocktail of sedatives." I looked it all up, Sarah. I saw the reports, the dosages, the names of the drugs, the way you kept me on them, long after they were necessary, the way you kept me foggy, confused, compliant. I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. "And the money, Sarah? The transfers, the new will, my pension, my insurance payout, all of it." Her initial shock gave way to a chilling, stony silence. Her gaze dropped from my face to the tablet, then to her hands, clasped tightly in front of her. A long, agonizing silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken truths. When she finally looked up, her eyes were devoid of warmth, cold and calculating. "You don't understand, Marcus," she said, her voice low, devoid of its usual cloying sweetness. "It was never supposed to be like this. You were always so reckless, so brave, always putting yourself in harm's way. I wanted security. A life where I didn't have to worry every time you walked out the door for a shift." The confession, when it came, was stripped bare of remorse, delivered with a twisted logic that curdled my blood. She spoke of her fear, her desire for a stable future, a future where she wouldn't constantly worry about my dangerous profession. The accident, she claimed, was an opportunity. She hadn't caused the explosion, no, but she had been there, witnessed my initial collapse, and seeing the extent of my injuries, a plan had formed. A plan to ensure I survived, yes, but also to ensure I would be permanently dependent, unable to question, unable to truly heal. The drugs, the isolation, the gaslighting, all to maintain the golden cage, to secure her future, my pension, my life insurance. "You were so focused on being a hero," she finished, a brittle edge to her voice. "You never saw what I needed." What we needed? My world, already shattered, splintered into a million tiny shards. The woman I had loved, depended on, the angel who had cared for me, was a monster. A cold, calculating manipulator who had stolen 5 years of my life, my dignity, my very self. The grief for the man I used to be was overwhelming, but underneath it, a fierce, burning anger ignited, purifying and cleansing. The fog lifted completely, leaving behind a razor-sharp clarity. My guilt, the one I had carried for so long, had been a lie, a weapon she had wielded against me. I remember thinking, I will not be her victim any longer. It took everything I had, every ounce of strength, every flicker of resolve I still possessed. My hands shook as I reached for my old, battered phone, hidden under my mattress for weeks. I called the Boulder Police Department, my voice surprisingly steady as I requested to speak to an officer. Sarah watched me, frozen, her face a mask of disbelief and dawning horror as she realized her game was truly up. The officers arrived quickly, followed by an ambulance. The scene was surreal. I handed over the tablet, the recordings, the printouts of bank statements, and the suspicious will. Sarah initially tried to deny everything, to plead confusion, but when faced with the irrefutable evidence, her composure cracked. They took her away in handcuffs, her protests fading into the crisp morning air. The aftermath was a blur of medical exams, police interviews, and the bewildering realization that I was finally, truly free. They slowly weaned me off the cocktail of sedatives and muscle relaxants. The physical pain was intense, a raw, throbbing agony as my body reawakened from its chemically induced stupor. But with each day, the mental fog dissipated further. I started to remember things: the smell of pine on a crisp autumn morning, the feel of hose in my hands, the taste of my mom's apple pie, snippets of conversations, laughter. My own laughter. The path to healing was long and arduous. Intensive rehabilitation became my new purpose. Without the constant sedation, my body responded differently. Slowly, agonizingly, I started to regain some mobility. It wasn't a miracle cure. The damage was extensive. I still used a wheelchair, but I could transfer myself, could stand for short periods with assistance, could even take a few halting steps with a walker. Each small victory felt monumental, a reclaiming of my body, my autonomy. My family, once kept at arm's length by Sarah's subtle machinations, rallied around me. My sister, Karen, came from Denver, her face etched with sorrow and fierce protectiveness. Liam, my nephew, helped me understand the medical reports, his earlier innocent comments now taking on a devastating significance. Their presence was a balm, a reconnection to a world I thought I'd lost forever. They helped me navigate the legal proceedings, the shocking revelations of Sarah's extensive financial fraud, her cunning, her callousness. The full extent of her cruelty, her long-term planning, was laid bare in court. She was eventually sentenced to a long prison term. The golden cage was gone, replaced by open doors, fresh air, and the vast, undeniable expanse of the Colorado sky. I still look out at the Flatirons, but now I see them differently. Not as a cruel reminder of what I've lost, but as a promise of what I can still embrace. My body is scarred, a constant reminder of the trauma, but it is also a testament to my survival. The guilt I carried for so long, the self-blame, has vanished, replaced by a quiet strength. I am not the man I was before the accident, nor am I the helpless invalid Sarah molded me into. I am Marcus, a survivor, a man still healing, still learning to walk, both literally and figuratively. I'm rediscovering myself, finding joy in simple things: the warmth of the sun on my skin, the taste of real, untainted coffee, the laughter of my family, the quiet hum of my own clear thoughts. My life is bittersweet, marked by loss and betrayal, but it is mine. And for the first time in a very long time, it feels truly free.